Hey guys, this is my Let's Play for Wargame Airland Battle, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview of how the deck system works in Wargame, and from there, if we have time, we'll take a look at how the game is actually played. So, Wargame Airland Battle is what I would call a real-time tactics game, where you don't really have a whole lot of resource management other than holding reinforcement points. So that way you get, well, reinforcement points, which allow you to call in more units via reinforcement routes. So if you've played World in Conflict before, all of your units were airlifted in. In Wargame Airland Battle, your units actually follow designated reinforcement paths. The game is set up using a deck system, which we'll go ahead and take a look at now. And the way that the deck system works is it determines what alliance you've got, so NATO or Pact, the name of your deck, different specialized things, so let's say you want an American deck, so bam. There's an American deck right there. Let's say you have a specific type of deck you want to do, so like a mechanized deck or a support deck or something like that. That changes the number of units available per card. And then you can use an era deck, which says, okay, I want all units available before 1980, before 1975, things like that. It tells you how many activation points you've got, and then it tells you what your allocation of those points is. So let's go ahead and create a new deck. We'll go NATO. We're going to call it My Old School Air Deck. Alright, and we're going to go ahead and select a bonus. So we've got NATO, and we've got a national deck. So you see you can do the United States, United Kingdom, France. Not sure who that is. Canada, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. So, since we're just going to call it a NATO deck, we want all those. What type? Well, we're going to want, I believe it's an air assault deck. No. Is it mechanized? Nope. Para. I'll figure it out eventually. There we go. We want a motorized deck. And our era, let's do category C, anything before 1975. So go ahead and create our deck here. And as you can see, there are several different categories. Logistics, infantry, support, tank, recon, vehicle, helo, and playing. So the first one you always want to start out with is logistics. So we need what's called a command point, or command unit. So let's see here. Let's get you. You look fun. And then we're going to need a FOB, forward operation space. And depending on the number of helicopters we have, oh wow, look, I get 2 of them per card. So that means I can only do, if I want 4 FOBs, I can do, just 2 cards here. So what I'm doing over here is I'm selecting a card. Each card gives me 2 FOBs. And it says right here how many points it costs to deploy that. So for example, I get 7 of these ILTIS KDOWs, and each one costs 110 points. This is a German thing. This is, oh, who are you? I don't know who you are. Okay, whatever. Anyway, that's where you guys go to refuel and repair and rearm. Now, there are different kinds of resupply units you can use. So, like, there's helicopter resupplies. So, let's take a look at this unit right here. This is a helicopter resupply. And let's look at the information over here. So, this is a 25-point unit. This indicates that it's clearly a helicopter, as you can obviously see right here. These numbers right here tell you what the armor values are. The strength is just a number of guys in a squad or maximum hit points. It's kind of weak, It's a big unit, and it can't see very well. But it's pretty quick. It moves at 270 kilometers an hour. And the cool thing about resupply vehicles is that they carry fuel and they don't consume any. And then there's a whole bunch of miscellaneous information. But to keep this simple, we're just going to get some Alvis Stewarts, which carry 750 liters. But they only cost 15 points to deploy. Alright, now let's take a look. Is there any infantry that we want? Well, we're going for a really heavy air attack, not necessarily an airborne attack. So we're going to skip the infantry for now. Let's go to support. Let's find some anti-air. So here's an anti-air gun. And really, what I'm looking at right now is what's the range against helicopters, what's the range against aircraft, and how accurate is it. Other than that, I don't care. Okay, so this has a 2.2 kilometer range against both helicopters and aircraft. So that's pretty good. Now it is a radar unit, so that means that planes that have anti-radar missiles will be able to target it. But you know what? Let's just go ahead and get one. So I've got 22 of them for 20 points, and that's one card. And what are you? You're a rocket launcher. And here we go. Let's go to Chaparral. So I get 14 Chaparrals, which have a 2.4 kilometer helicopter range and a 1.9 kilometer aircraft range. So this is really more built to be anti-helicopter, and it's only got an accuracy of 7, which isn't real good, but you can do a lot worse. And then here is a radar-guided anti-air, the Hawk. And as you can see, it's much better against aircraft with almost a 4 kilometer range. And it's fairly accurate at 7. But one thing to note is that it only has 3 missiles on it. So, you know what? We've got AAA, IR SAM, and radar-guided SAM. So that looks good enough. Now we need some recon units. And I personally prefer helicopters because they're very, very mobile. And the optics on your recon units is very important. So for example, here's the Alouette 3. And it's got a 210 kilometer speed. It's got 570 liters of fuel. Really, the autonomy is what you're looking at here, 680 kilometers. It's a small helicopter and it's got really good optics. So for 40 points, that's a pretty good unit. Alright, so we'll pick up one of those. And again, this card gives me 7 deployments of an Alouette 3. Alternatively, we can look at a Gazelle AH-1. This is also a good unit, but it's you don't get quite as many. So see, I only get 5 for 1 card slot as opposed to 7, and this unit costs 70 points. It's also a slower helicopter, or actually it's slightly faster, but it's got better optics. Alright, now let's get to the fun stuff here. Alright, here are the aircraft. Now, before you get overwhelmed by everything, they do sort the aircraft into different roles. You've got air-to-ground, multi-role, air superiority, and seed. So for example, the A4 Skyhawk that we have here is a ground attack aircraft. Here's the rocket, here are the weapons that it uses. So it's got a machine gun and some 127mm rockets. Here's another attack aircraft. This is set at what is that? That's an F-116. Looks like an F-5 to me. It's got cluster bombs. This tells you the size, and this tells you how many there are. This is the accuracy rating. This is the armored target, or the armor piercing value. It's a little bit low, so we'll just kind of keep going. Again, here's a multi-role. So again, machine gun, bombs, and air-to-air missiles. One important thing to note here while we're looking through this is if you have a bomber that doesn't have any HE power, it's not going to hurt non-armored targets. So like infantry, the Mark 20 Rockeye isn't going to do a thing against infantry, which is really quite counterintuitive, but that's the way they set it up. Alright, so here's a seed aircraft. So we've got a machine gun, a seed missile, and an AIM-9 for air-to-air. So you know what, let's get one of those. So this F4 costs 105 points to deploy, and we get 4 F4s per card. So we put 1 card in here. I now have 4 F4s I can work with. Okay, well here's a good one, the Harrier GR3. This gives me a machine gun, so I can do strafing. Here is a Mark 10 HE bomb. I personally prefer HE bombs over AP bombs because they're more generally useful. It's a little slow at 600 kilometers per hour, and you can't really have it out on the field for very long. But it does have an AIM-9, so it can at least shoot down enemy helicopters or other, like if there's an attack aircraft out there. And as you can see, it's got 2 500 kilogram bombs that have a very, very high HE power. So we've got a pretty good option here. Let's go ahead and get a couple of those. Now the reason I only got 1 card of F4s but 2 cards of Harriers is because you usually don't see a whole lot of radar stuff because they're susceptible to seed like that. Alright, let's find some air superiority. Here we go. Here's a Mirage. Its missiles are a little short range. And one other thing too is semi-active radar missiles can't target helicopters. But as you can see, these short-range IR can. So let's go ahead and get, let's say 2 of those. And again, I'm just kind of picking out weapons here. And let's get some anti-armor. So let's get some F-10. Yeah, those are F-104 starfighters. And I've still got a little bit left, so let's go to helicopters. Now, as I was doing this, you will notice that my activation points have been going up. So this first card here only costs 1 activation point. The third card costs 2. Third and fourth cards cost 2. The 5th and 6th cost 3. The 7th and 8th costs 4, and the 9th costs 5. So clearly I can't just fill this up with helicopters. So let's get, some Cobras, which have machine gun, rocket, and anti-tank missiles. Cool. So let's get 2 of those. And that's just a machine gun helicopter. This is a good anti-infantry helicopter, so we'll get a couple of those. And we'll get some of these as well. So we've got 32 of 33 points. Well, what else do we really need? Well, here's some anti-tanks. Do we really need that with all the planes that we have? No, not really. What about some infantry or some support units? Suppose we could pick up a few tanks. These are just really herpy-derpy light tanks. Personally, I'm a fan of any tank that comes with missiles because it's a good tank destroyer. So we'll get a Harpoon. It's probably going to die really fast. You know what? If we're going to get an anti-tank, why don't we just get an anti-tank? Hey look, it's more accurate and I get more missiles. Bam. Okay, so that's the basics for building a deck. This is an extremely brief overview of it. But you have your command unit and your resupply. Infantry, which we didn't touch. Support units, so in this case, anti-air. Tanks, which we didn't touch. Recon, which allows you to see the enemy. What I like to call the tank destroyer stack, but there's usually a few other light units in there as well. Helicopters, and then our main focus, aircraft right here. When I do my next video, I'll give you a brief overview on how the actual combat system works, and I'll play just a very brief game against AI and probably get demolished in the process.